Hi, it's Danny with Longevity for the Long Haul. This is the beginning of our second season. I have my friend Jill here with me. She's one of my favorite people that have helped me through this entire process. I met Jill after I began to recover, and Jill has played a significant role in helping me understand other people's behavior in regards to my illness, and also just she's helped me reset my mind around a lot of things that I felt were out of my control, and I felt very vulnerable. So today we're going to talk about the termination of the long COVID advisory committee. Yesterday I called Jill, and when I found out, because I was just reacting to the situation, and Jill, I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you what she knows about long COVID, and just say, hey, Jill.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jill. I am a mom, an entrepreneur, and a friend of Danny's. To be honest about long COVID, I didn't even know what it was until I met Danny. I had no clue. Wasn't in denial that COVID was a thing by any means, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge about it from a medical standpoint or from a standpoint of the effects of it on different people and how they process it or any of that information. I completely had nothing. My experience with COVID was when I started to get a lot of the negativity from the media and all of those things. I kind of just shut it out and tuned it out of my life. And then I've allowed certain parts of it to come back into my life, but I'm very intentional on what I consume so that I don't overwhelm myself or my mindset with a lot of not necessary information. Uh,
Yeah.
that was kind of my choice, but I have learned a lot, and I now advocate for my friend Danny as much as I can. So yeah, that's basically where I stand, with that.
Yeah.
But
So when we first met, it was very hard for me to trust people, open up, feel comfortable, because I would always wear a mask whenever I was in small spaces, and just getting to know people. And I would talk a lot about my illness. And Joe would obviously just redirect me around my illness. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
matter, what.
I think the first time I met you, we were at a luncheon,
Mhm.
and it was obvious to me that you were very intentional with your energy at that
Mhm.
point because you were having difficulty walking. You were having difficulty communicating, but you were struggling and yet still like killing it, in my
Trying.
opinion. Well,
Right.
I mean, to me, I was like, but I didn't know at that point. I didn't know that you had an illness. I just knew you as you showed up. And so there was no judgment and no comparison for me. There was no previous Danny versus the Danny that I met. So the Danny
Right.
that I met was, you know, in the beginning of the recovery process, probably,
Mhm.
maybe not even the beginning, but, for you, but for me, that's.
Yeah. I think I met you right after I finished a lot of my treatment, and then
Mhm.
I started getting the right sequence of what worked for me. And
Yep.
then
Yep.
it was very lonely time because I lost a lot of friends and family over it, because
Hmm.
everybody thought I was making it up. Everybody thought I was being difficult. Everybody was
Right.
hearing all the things that they said. And Jill just didn't give a shit if I wore a mask. And if
No.
she didn't want to wear a mask, but she
No, I think I
also,
told you that.
yeah, but she was also somebody
I
who,
hate wearing a mask.
yeah, me too. Like,
I
people
still
think I
hate
like
wearing a
wearing a
mask.
mask. Like, give me a
No.
break. But Jill is one of those people, if she's sick, she's going to stay home. She's not going to,
Well, I learned that one of the very first things that I learned about wear the mask. Okay. So first of all, I have a child that has a disability. And I remember when COVID hit and they were like, you're going to wear a mask all the time. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No way. Not happening. I will do whatever I have to do to seclude myself, which is also against my nature to not be social 24/7. So that was a big adjustment for me. But I was like, I will stay 25 feet apart if I have to and scream across the street
Uh-huh.
but I'm not going to wear a mask.
Right.
And uh, I thought for the longest time, I was like, oh, my son, he's going to be like, oh, I'm not wearing a mask. There's no way. I thought he was going to be worse at it, than anybody. And actually, it was the other way around. I was the one that sucked at it, and he was actually fine with it. And I was like, oh, great. But yeah, but I actually might have been the person that rolled my eyes at someone wearing a mask. Like, what are you doing? Until I learned another perspective, which I'm usually open to, which is, like, what does it mean to you? Because I, what I was hearing was everyone wears a mask to protect other people. And in the reality, and then it was like, you're morally an asshole if you don't wear a mask. Right.
Yeah.
And then what I actually learned is that when you wear a mask, you're protecting yourself. So that made more sense to me. Right. And then, and just respecting that that's your choice.
Uh-huh.
It's your choice,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But what I think that our communication led me to was, that it's my choice that I don't want to wear a mask.
For sure.
Now, as a friend, if you asked me, hey, Jill, this is a vulnerable time for me in this space, would you wear a mask? Of course, I would say yes. I would hate it, but I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also learned that, if somebody's choosing to wear a mask, they could really just be protecting themselves. And it has nothing to do with anybody else around you. It's totally for yourself.
Right.
And I think that the media had a huge part in confusing most people about a very simple thing like wearing a mask. And
like,
it's unfortunate.
and it was like, for me, now you've known me long enough to know what happens when I do get sick. And
Right.
I don't even have to get sick to have a setback.
Right.
And
Right.
that wearing a mask for me is just a protective barrier. And
Right.
I think, the thing about being a person who's sick basically is living with an invisible illness that some people don't believe in. And you almost become a victim to some extent, like, nobody, the poor, pitiful me, whatever, whatever. And then I think what was really good about our friendship is you just basically didn't make it about that. You just made it about, well, if you're my friend and you ask me to do this, or not even if you ask me to do that, or I'm not going to come around you when I'm sick. Right.
Well, I'm going to empower you with the opportunity to say, you know what, we're not going to meet. Like last week, I was sick. I got sick. And I think I even told you, I feel like I started to get a head cold. And I told you, if I come into town, I'm not coming to see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like until I absolutely know that I'm better and that I haven't passed it to Jackson, or I haven't, whatever. I would be more cautious. Same thing when I went out of town and I came back from Phoenix. I was on a plane. I did not wear a mask. I respect the fact that there's a period of time for which you don't feel comfortable being around me because I put myself in that position. And that's fine.
Yeah. And so like what happened is, so Jill and I, I think we have an open relationship. Like we're open-minded. We allow each other to think whatever they think, but we kind of both respect each other's preferences and differences. And so recently with everything that's happened, it's been really great because Jill
yesterday, the car ride.
Oh yeah.
The car ride. Let's dive into that.
Oh my God. So the car ride yesterday.
Wait. So we have to preface this. So
Okay.
I might even take this tripod thing off real quick so I can get closer, because
get in there, Jill. Get in there.
This needs to be a closer conversation. So I'm going to set the tone. So my father is ultra conservative, I would say. He is a Fox News 24/7 consumer. he is a Trump supporter, 100%. And I wouldn't say that he is, no, I might say he's a bit fanatical. He is what he is, and he's very stubborn, and he's extremely stubborn.
But
And
he's
there's a
also
lot of
nice and
things.
he also cares. Like he
He
likes
does
me.
care. He likes you. He likes me. He likes my son with a disability. I mean, yes, but he is also very old school, and he can be a jerk. Like, he can be a jerk. Well,
I didn't
when
know he was in the car until I
you
was
didn't
like,
know he was in the car, so she gets this information yesterday about Trump shutting down the NIH and
well,
what that
we'll shut down the branch of the long COVID advisory committee, which is in charge of
right,
creating a treatment plan and access to care for millions of Americans.
while you're actually working with them
Uh-huh.
on what that
Trying.
treatment plan could look like, right? So
Mhm.
it's very personal to you.
Yeah.
And you called me on the phone, and he happened to be in the car with me, and it was on my Bluetooth. And I did tell you that you're on speaker. My dad's in the car, but we started talking, and my dad kind of interjected, like, I don't know if he was just, I don't know what he did. What did he say?
I think I said something like, I just basically say, I can't believe you did it. He says, no, he did. No, he didn't do that. That doesn't mean that. And
Yeah. He was combative. He
he
was
was like,
combative.
he's like, he didn't
No,
do
he
that. I'm
didn't.
like, no, he did.
He did.
And he was like, well, the government shouldn't be funding this kind of stuff. And it should be in the private sector and they should be developing these drugs. And I'm like, well, that's not the way it works. The government is
Right.
the one
Right.
that does all of this because it's not profitable to do all the research and the data to, number one, find where the disease lives inside your body. Number two, what kind of drugs can we use or what kinds of treatment or how can we repurpose something else? How, it's not like it's not very healing to do the groundwork. Because what people
Right.
don't realize, government does all the research and the work, creates the information that larger pharmaceutical companies and
Private sectors, private
private
companies.
sectors can now decide that they want to develop and create drugs to treat your illness.
Yeah.
Before
So
that,
like, if I had to simplify that for everybody, I would say once somebody does all of the legwork to show you that it's possible, then everybody's interested in doing it. Right.
uh
And it's like, okay. But I think the thing that really made me like laugh about it, sort of, was that my dad said, well, why do you think he did that? Right? He said, why do you
yeah,
think Trump did that? And your response, it was like poking the
I was
bear.
like,
Like,
do you
my
want to
dad,
know?
you were like, oh, heck no.
I was
Like,
like,
let's go.
yeah,
And then that's when, okay, so you said what you said, right? You told
yeah.
him
Basically, it
all
just
the
doesn't
things,
fit his narrative, and that basically
right?
Trump has played down the pandemic the entire time, and then he just appeals to his base, which is, conservative people and focusing on economics.
Right. So, and that made sense to me. So it made sense to me. And I completely agreed that you can't support long COVID research if you deny COVID was a thing,
Yeah. Or it
right?
was a conspiracy
That,
or
yeah, it's your belief and it's your stance that you've taken that said COVID's nothing. It's a joke. It's cold, whatever,
yeah, and
whatever
I think we
the
talked
narrative
about, I
was.
said like he didn't even want to wear a mask. Like he goes,
Yeah.
well, I didn't wear a
And then
mask.
my dad said, I don't wear a mask. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
God, this is
I'm
going
like, but you're
downhill.
not the leader of the free world, you know?
No,
And
that's true.
what made me
Well,
jealous
so,
is that, go ahead.
so fast forward just a few minutes. So like we kind of, we ended that conversation in the car. You and I continued to talk.
So
But then when I re-engaged with my dad again,
what
I was
happened?
still on the phone with you. And I said, and he was mumbling something like under his breath. And I'm like, what did you say? And he said, she just wants free treatment. And I was like, oh, like,
Oh my God.
we gonna fight. And I was like, and
Yeah,
that,
no.
so So his perspective was, we can cut anything to save money. It shouldn't be government control, even though Trump essentially is the government right now, right? So that makes no sense, right?
Oxymoron.
Yeah.
And I think he said that because I said Medicaid and Medicare and
right.
the
You
NIH
had said
create the standard
Medicaid,
of care.
Medicare, and yeah. And so he went, but the bottom line was, he was so closed off to even hearing what you were saying that he jumped from, she said Medicaid gives free money to people that don't work. And you know what I mean? Like, he just went like all the way down the slope.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, like, we're not even having a snowball fight here. Like, we're just having a conversation. And he would not. And after that, I said, no, actually, she can pay for the treatment. What this study does is proves that there should be one.
Access.
Yeah. The committee makes it accessible. It's not, if they shut it down, it's not even an option. Do you understand what that means? You know, and he essentially was just being belligerent. But then Jeff tried to chime in and say something. And he's like there was no, and he said there was no government control or no government participation in polio. And Jeff was like, what? You know, so then, and so then I was like, okay, now you're just being dumb. We're done.
Yeah.
But
and it's
what it led me to talk to you about further was, when you do have a window of opportunity to communicate with someone that has clearly very narrow-minded viewpoints that
are just like a limited source of information.
Or limited, or they're just not even open to it to begin with. If they open a window, like by asking a question, that's where the
Opportunity is.
That's where the talent comes in, to take your knowledge, filter out the emotion, and have an opportunity to slide in.
Yeah, you
very
did encourage me yesterday.
Very strategically to get those nuggets in, because, you know, going in hard, heavy with someone like my dad doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and that's what I said. I was like, I'm not going to be able to convince him of anything. And then what did you say?
Right.
You're like, you convinced me. Like, I didn't believe.
You did. Like, I didn't believe it. You convinced me. You taught me so much. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm advocating for long COVID where most people wouldn't. I don't have long COVID. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, but I know more about long COVID now. And I mean, I wear the Whoop. I use it, and I don't have long COVID, but like, I still talk about this. And I also give the comparison of how my friend Danny uses the Whoop to manage her illness, long COVID. And they're like, what? You know, and then they're like, what's long COVID? And then boom. Okay. You want to be educated? I can regurgitate Danny's words all day long. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think because I think we respect the right for people to think and do what they want to do, but
and we don't have to agree on it.
Yeah. But we don't
what
divide.
I told my dad ultimately yesterday is, I said, you don't have to change your belief, right? Mm-hmm. To be kind to someone that has a different belief. End of story. Like, you don't have to change your belief to listen to the fact that there could be an option of another belief, and that it has real effect on someone else, you know?
Like, the government shouldn't be making decisions about treating my disease, because, you know, it's just like, that shouldn't be a government decision.
No, it should not.
To do or to not to do. Like, they should.
Yeah.
They should, because ultimately there's millions of Americans who are in a worse position than I am. There's people that are bedbound, that are housebound, that are struggling with anxiety and depression. I mean, I remember what that was like.
And people that are dying.
And people that are dying, you know? People are still dying. As they said, every 11 minutes, somebody dies from COVID still. And, you know, it's crazy. But, you know, I remember early on, whenever COVID first happened, and it was just like everybody would say it's just another flu. And I'm like, you know what? I've been a nurse for 13 years and I only know one person that's died from the flu.
Right.
And then this was like first year of COVID, and I knew 6 people. So if you, and it made me think of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Like that's how relevant it is, and I just know that, there is a very strong belief system within the right side, not the complete right side, but there's a strong belief that it's not, what it really is. And I know, and I found strength by channeling the HIV community and understanding they went through the same different types of biases and creating treatment and effective plans. I just want to be able to live my life again. I want to be able to do what I want to do. I don't want to have to think about, what I'm eating and how much time, or have I exceeded my strain level? Am I going to be out for another day and having to choose between dishes and laundry and spending time with my kids or going to their basketball or baseball game,
Right. And just this week when I got sick, it wasn't COVID, but I got a sinus situation. I don't know what it was. And then it moved into, you know, a little bit worse the next day. And of course I had my whoop, so I could see the progression of it happening. And then I apparently had a fever all night long one night, and my, respiratory rates through the roof. And I woke up at a 1%. And I remember telling you, like, what the hell? And you're like, this isn't like my everyday. And I was like, what, wait, what?
Yeah, this is my
And I
life.
was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I mean, like, I don't know that I could do
Yeah.
it.
And it was basically that you were experiencing, like, you're like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock and I've reached my max strain. And I'm like,
No, yeah, I had just gotten out of bed. I remember it was on that 1% day. I didn't even know I was in the red yet. I didn't even look at it. And it sent me a notification before I even checked it and did anything. It sent me a notification. It was like, you've reached your strain level for the day. And I was like, dude, I just got out of bed and went to the bathroom. That's it. Like, I haven't even had a cup of coffee. And
yeah,
it was like, your max strain has already been met. You should chill out for the rest of the day. And
for
I
the
was like,
day.
what? I got stuff I got to
I
do.
got shit I got to do. Yeah,
Oh my God.
exactly.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, I have to ask for help. I have to slow down. I have to work very strategically so that I don't create what you create when you overdo it every
Yeah,
day. Like, and
every
I had to
day.
do that for a day,
Yeah.
and it sucked.
It sucks.
Just so
And
you
it
know.
does suck.
Yeah, it
And
does.
And
Yeah.
I think people think that I don't want to participate or I don't want to be there. It's just like, no, it's very, very lonely.
Yeah.
And I do
No,
want to be there.
I know that's not true. Like, I know that's not true. But I mean, I'm not everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would also like to tell people, like, even after you get sick and after your whole life changes and there's like a major pivot, and the people that you thought were your friends and that you thought were your family that would stand by you, they don't. And that's okay, because then you meet people like Joe.
Right. And you create your new family,
New family, new
new sister.
friends, and you know, you want people to meet you where you're at and based on what you can do. And I'm really thankful for Jill, and I'm glad we could have a lot of honest conversations, because talking to Jill has allowed me to understand where other people are coming from too, because she never said it with hate in her heart. She just said, wait, no.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that sometimes I have to have a different perspective a lot of times in my life because, I'm homeschooling my son who learns differently. So I have to get real creative with that. I've always been that person that's like, don't tell me we can't do something. Tell me what we can do.
Mhm.
And so sometimes when you get, really passionate about something and you start talking to the point where I'm like, no one's going to listen to that.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's my role. My role is to say, wait a second. Is there another way that we can have this conversation that
Uh-huh.
might actually get through and get you what you want, which is people to understand and people to hear it. And instead of focusing on so much that, you know, people don't think long COVID's a real thing. Well, how would that what would it look like if they did? What would it take to convince someone that's hardcore, like my dad? What would it take? And so I try to think of things like that. Like I think of how could I get through to my dad about this and make it relatable to him. Like I look at it from his perspective. And sometimes that's hard to do because it's like it goes against everything that you believe, right? But that's kind of what I do. Like I'm like, oh, well, let me see if I can see where there would be a window of opportunity. Like there's gotta be, you can't be that rigid all the time.
Yeah. And I think your dad has gotten to know me over time, and he knows, like, and he hears, and I think proximity is key,
Yeah.
proximity is power. And when people like hear the good days and the bad days, and then they, you
Right.
know, understand like
To
how much
follow
work.
up
Yeah.
after we had the conversations and stuff like that, my dad sat there for a little bit. He started researching what Trump was doing.
Yeah.
So he started playing things on the phone on
Uh-huh.
speaker. And
Hmm.
I said, are you trying to educate me or are you educating you?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, well, this is just what is, what's happening. And I said, yeah, Dad, I said, I think that, for me, I would question, why would you go in and shut down all of these things? And we're talking multiple things. We're not talking
Yeah.
just the long coat. And like, we're talking all of these things. Why would you go in there and slash this, cut this, slash this, cut this with no freaking plan of what you're going to do?
Uh-huh.
Like
Very sloppy, very
it's,
haphazard, but
it is,
also intentional.
it may be intentional. I mean, that behavior from a behavior standpoint, it elicits exactly what it's getting, which is people are pissed
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and outrage and whatever. But I'm like, you play with fire too long, you get burnt, like you can't do that. And I just told my dad that I was like, hey, look, you know, he is doing this. Yes, that is a fact.
Uh-huh.
And it also affects people in different ways. And that is also a fact.
Uh-huh.
And, and that's where I correlated it because he was like, well, he's doing it. And I'm like, yeah, well, he is doing it. And though
This
it
is the
may
people
not
that he's
affect you,
affecting.
yeah,
Yeah.
and though it may not affect you sitting in the chair right across from me, it does affect my friend
Uh-huh.
and her ability to live her life to the fullest. And I said, so, if he cut something that affected you to live your life to the fullest, you might be concerned too, you
And
know?
I think the important thing that you did yesterday, because whenever I was like, oh, I can't do this, this is just horrible, it's too hard, it's too tough. And I had, like, you helped me regroup. And I'm like, well, what do I want to tell them? Because, like, how do you
Right.
convince them? Right.
Right.
And
You
as,
can't go in when somebody's setting off, or let's just say somebody's setting something on fire. You can't go in with more fire and expect it to go out. Like you have to distance that anxiety and that anxiousness and that energy
yeah,
with some type of other energy. Like, if somebody's throwing a tantrum, you don't
mhm,
go in at the same level of tantrum. No, you come in way under, you talk slower and softer and whatever. And so when talking to someone that has those rigid standpoints and, you're lucky to even get an opportunity to slide in some info, you have to be strategic. You have to, you know?
and then we started thinking about, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to tell them? And I was just like,
Yeah.
well,
How do
I
we
want
want to
to,
tell it? What do we
yeah,
want people to
you
know?
can, you can still tell like your representatives what you did vote for. Like, I don't think the people that voted for Trump voted against me and my community with long COVID. I don't think the people that voted for Trump voted for cutting funding for pediatric cancer, considering it
No.
like a waste of money. And, I don't believe that at all. And so what I would tell people who love Trump and believe in whatever they think he's doing, but aren't seeing like who he's really having a negative impact on, is that tell him what you do want. And at the end of the day, just tell them, say, I want people with long COVID to be well. I want kids in public schools to receive the services that they need to have equal access to education, just like I want equal access to healthcare, like
Right.
tell them what you do want, you don't
Yeah.
have to
And it
go
goes
against them.
further from that. That 504 plan that you're talking about. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday that has a disability, and she's like, even in her community, she's blind. And she said, a 504 plan gives me the accommodations that I need to be a professor at my job. It gives me my accommodations, and if I don't have those, I can't
Or
do my
teach.
job. I
Yeah.
can't teach people to teach people that are visually impaired. And I was like, whoo. And she was even saying within her own community of people with the same disability, that even the people with the disability didn't understand that 504 in school, like literally in school, also works up into work after school.
The ramps,
Same
the
thing.
like anything.
All of it. All of
And
it.
all of it. And
Equitable
so that's why
access.
you can't
Yeah,
go through with the broad stroke and say, axe
exactly.
the
Exactly.
DEI. The broad stroke is the problem. It's not the conserving money and saving money and trying to,
Yes.
do things
Yeah.
differently.
It's
It's
not that
just
there's not areas that you can trim the fat, so to speak, but you just can't go throwing it all out.
uh
Like it's
throwing the
just
baby out with
chaos.
the bathwater.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also,
It's
I want to
terrible.
share with people, right? I also want you to tell people what you and Jackson are doing. Um,
Oh, okay. So Jackson and we are doing a fitness challenge. So one of the things that we're doing is Jackson signed up for a triathlon. Okay. And because Jackson signed up for a triathlon, I also signed up for a triathlon. So we are training for a triathlon together. His
Mhm.
is a kids triathlon. It is in, let's see, by the end of this weekend, it'll be 8 more weeks. We have 8 weeks until the triathlon. So it's at the end of April. And, we have a trainer, and she is helping us with scheduling our workouts and making sure that we are ready for the triathlon. But I am taking this opportunity to teach Jackson, my 14-year-old, how to fundraise. So I think it's an important thing to learn. So I'm teaching him how to fundraise and how to tie this fitness challenge to people that can support him and me during this challenge by giving us money. And then I'm allowing Jackson to what types of things that he wants to support. And I'm coming up with ways that we can support different people in need and using those funds and then doing those. And we're doing it through social media. We're doing it on Facebook and Instagram. And the very first thing that, we talk about long COVID, we talk about Danny all the time. He loves Danny. Danny's the one and only Danny, the whoop master. So we talked about long COVID, and I shared with Jackson because I like to go into the sauna after my workouts because the detoxification that happens in the sauna is really good for me after I work out. And it actually is something that I make him wait for me at the YMCA after our swims, because that's what I do is I go in the sauna for a good 20 minutes and I get really good and sweaty and then take a shower. And Danny was explaining to me that is essential for people with long COVID to detoxify.
yeah,
And that the
because when I
challenge,
couldn't move,
right. But the challenge when you couldn't move was, how do I get sweaty and detoxify my body if I can't move because I don't have any energy and I don't have the capability? So she taught me about how important it is for people with long COVID to have a good infrared sauna bag. And they come at a price of about $600 for a good one. Right. And so Jackson, I educated him on the sauna and the sauna bag and tied it back to long COVID. And we decided that the first thing that we were going to do with the money that we earn or through our donations is we are going to buy a infrared sauna bag for a friend of ours that has long COVID, that she cannot afford to get one. So we are going to get one for her. So Jackson, we're very close to getting that.
that's awesome.
I think we're probably a few $100s away.
So more than
So
halfway to your
yeah,
goal.
so we're right about halfway. I think we're a little over halfway. So yeah, so we don't have too much to go, and that's the first thing that we're going to do. So we have been posting pictures of us riding our bikes and swimming and doing all the things, and we work out and do our workouts and try to film stuff and ask people to support us through this journey of pain and suffering.
Well, because you guys
Because
can move and we can't, right? Because
right,
I really want to
yeah.
move, you know?
Right. Danny's like, I don't want to do the triathlon. And I'm like, oh, you can do it. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that you want to do that you can't necessarily do right now. And I'm like, it motivates me to do them for you and with you and for you, like even giving blood.
Yep.
I
Because I
never
can't
gave
give blood
blood.
anymore.
I
Yeah.
never gave blood. I give blood
Yeah.
religiously now for Danny, for
And
you.
that's awesome.
And I give you a picture of my blood baby. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so Jackson and I are raising money. We're going to support things like sauna bags for long COVID, other things. Who knows?
Yep. Well,
We're
thank
open to
you.
suggestions.
Yeah. And I think everybody here can just help. And, the person that is going to receive this sauna bag is bedbound and cannot move. And so it's just the first step in the right direction to use her body the way it was created. And so
Yep.
one way to get rid of all these toxins is to get in a sauna bag. And I like to preface, the infrared sauna bag worked for me. It may not work for everyone, but it is one of those things I was able to look on my Whoop and see that it does work for me. And it was one
Yeah.
of the first things I did before I was able to walk. And then, I was bedbound. I could walk a quarter of a mile about 2 years ago. And then like last year, I finally could walk up to 3 miles. And then sometimes like I relapse, but now I'm rebuilding up my endurance again to be able to function at a higher level. So thank you, Jill, for supporting me and people like me, being an open ear and a good friend and someone I can have difficult conversations with so I don't give up on trying to make connections with people who don't agree with me and understand what I'm facing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you deserve to be heard. The
yeah.
end of story,
Yeah. Well, this is Longevity for the Long Haul. And this has been Jill Anderson, my bestie. And I just hope everybody can take a little bit of something from this conversation. And I hope it helps you make some connections to how you can help someone else too struggling with long COVID.
Love you, mean it.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
All right.